From Bye Bye Birdie to the Flintstones and, of course, co-starring with Elvis in Viva Las Vegas, Ann-Margret has had an incredibly steady career in Hollywood, spanning 6 decades.
As Ann-Margret entered her later years, she began to see her life from a new perspective. For most of her youth, she had lived in the spotlight, under cameras, makeup, and flashing lights. But now, at an age when most people settle quietly into memory, she found peace in reflection. Fame had given her much: fortune, respect, and the love of millions. Yet it had also taken things from her. She had lost privacy, freedom, and the ability to love openly. Still, she never let bitterness touch her heart. In interviews, she often said, "I have no regrets. Everything that happened, good or bad, made me who I am." Those words carried the wisdom of someone who had lived through pain and survived it with grace. When fans approached her for autographs, she always smiled warmly, as if each one were an old friend. She never saw herself as above others. "The audience is part of my life," she said. "Without them, I'm nothing." Even as her fame faded with time, Ann-Margret continued to perform, sometimes in small shows, sometimes for charities. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. She simply wanted to give joy. The stage had become her home, her sanctuary. When she sang, the years melted away, and the audience could still see the fiery young woman who once danced beside Elvis Presley. Her voice might have softened, but the passion was still there. The same spark that had once lit the hearts of millions. Over the years, journalists often asked Ann-Margret about Elvis. Some tried to get her to reveal more details, hoping for sensational stories, but she always stayed respectful. "I don't talk about private things," she would say gently. "He's gone, and I don't want to hurt anyone." Her eyes, however, often said more than her words. There was always a trace of tenderness when his name came up, a quiet sadness mixed with gratitude. Privately, those close to her said she kept a small photo of Elvis in a silver frame in her home. It showed them laughing on the Viva Las Vegas set. To her, it wasn't a symbol of lost love. It was a memory of two young souls who had once found each other in a busy, confusing world. "He was very special," she once said softly. "He had a gentle heart that very few people understood." She never stopped believing in the goodness she had seen in him. When people called him troubled, she defended him. "He was human," she said. "He carried the weight of fame that no one could imagine. But he was kind and he made people happy. That's what mattered most to him." For Ann-Margret, love wasn't about how long it lasted. It was about how deeply it touched your soul. Even though she married another man and lived a full, happy life, Elvis remained a quiet presence, not in a painful way, but as a piece of her heart that time could never erase. The public saw Ann-Margret as a glamorous movie star, always smiling, always perfect. But those who knew her personally saw a different side. A woman who loved to cook, laugh, and take long walks with her pets. She was shy off-screen, humble, and deeply spiritual. She often attended church and lit candles for the people she loved, including Elvis. Her friends said she never lost her Swedish roots. Even after decades in America, she sometimes spoke Swedish with her relatives and cooked traditional dishes during the holidays. She loved the simple things, sitting by the fire, listening to old records, or watching classic films with her husband. Fame never changed her heart. She remained grounded, loyal, and full of gratitude. When her husband, Roger Smith, became ill, she cared for him with the same devotion he had shown her after her accident. For years, she turned down big film offers so she could stay by his side. "He was my rock," she said. "He believed in me when no one else did." Their marriage became one of Hollywood's rare love stories that truly lasted. After his passing, Ann-Margret admitted that life felt quieter, but she believed love never really dies. "He's still with me," she said, "just in a different way." Even in grief, she found comfort in her memories. And perhaps, somewhere in her heart, she also felt that another familiar soul, Elvis, was watching over her too. In her later interviews, Ann-Margret spoke more openly about love. Not as a fairy tale, but as something real and complicated. She said, "Love is not about who stays the longest. It's about who changes you forever." For her, both Roger and Elvis had shaped her in different ways. Roger gave her stability, peace, and lifelong companionship. Elvis gave her passion, inspiration, and the courage to embrace her true self. When asked if she ever wished things had turned out differently with Elvis, she smiled and said, "No, it was beautiful the way it was. We had our time, and it was ours alone." Those words reflected deep acceptance, a rare ability to treasure the past without being trapped by it. Ann-Margret believed that some connections are eternal. Sometimes, she said, two souls meet for a short time, but the bond they create lasts forever. That's what we had. Her philosophy of love touched many who heard her speak. People admired her not just for her beauty, but for her emotional honesty. In a world where celebrity relationships often ended in bitterness, hers remained pure, untold, unexploited, and full of grace. She also encouraged younger generations to love fearlessly, but wisely. Don't chase perfection, she said. Chase understanding. If you find someone who truly sees you, who knows your heart, never take that for granted. Her words carried the quiet strength of a woman who had loved deeply and lived fully. As Ann-Margret grew older, her legacy became larger than her fame. She was no longer just the star of Bye Bye Birdie or the fiery dancer of Viva Las Vegas. She was a symbol of resilience, elegance, and inner beauty. Her story inspired countless women to follow their dreams and to face challenges with courage. She received many Lifetime Achievement Awards and tributes from Hollywood, but she always accepted them with humility. When asked what she was most proud of, she didn't mention her awards or films. Instead, she said, "I'm proud that I stayed true to myself. I never pretended to be someone else." Her warmth touched everyone who met her. Young actors admired her professionalism. Fans admired her kindness. Even at events, she often hugged people instead of shaking hands, a small gesture that showed her sincerity. "Love is the only thing that really matters," she said once. "That's what we take with us in the end." Ann-Margret's connection to Elvis continued to fascinate people even decades later, but she handled it with quiet dignity. She never revealed all their secrets. She believed some memories should remain private. "They belong to us," she said simply. That decision, too, became part of her charm, a sign of her loyalty and strength of character. Today, Ann-Margret lives a calm, content life surrounded by close friends, family, and the music that defined her youth. She still smiles when she hears Elvis's songs, sometimes even humming along softly. To her, those melodies are not reminders of pain, but echoes of joy. She says they take her back to a time when everything was new, exciting, and full of love. At 84, she moves slowly but still radiates the same warmth that once lit up movie screens. She enjoys visits from fans and occasionally appears in documentaries about Hollywood's golden era. Her words have become gentler, wiser, and more reflective. When asked what she has learned from life, she answers, "That love is the only real thing. Everything else fades, fame, beauty, success, but love stays." Her confession about Elvis in 2025 wasn't about scandal or attention. It was about closure. After decades of silence, she wanted to honor their connection truthfully. "It's not a secret anymore," she said softly. "It's a memory that deserves peace." The world listened with admiration, not judgment. Her honesty made people respect her even more. Now, when fans look back at photos of Ann-Margret and Elvis, they see more than two icons. They see two human beings who loved each other deeply and bravely. Their story reminds us that love doesn't always fit neatly into the world's expectations. But that doesn't make it any less real. Ann-Margret once said, "Some people come into your life for a reason. They teach you, they shape you, and they stay with you even when they're gone." Those words could easily describe her relationship with Elvis Presley. Though their romance ended more than half a century ago, its memory continues to touch hearts across generations. Every time an old Elvis song plays, or a clip from Viva Las Vegas appears, fans see that sparkle, that undeniable magic between them. It wasn't acting. It was something real, something that time could never erase. In a world that often celebrates temporary love, their story stands as a timeless reminder of loyalty, tenderness, and truth. As Ann-Margret once said during an interview, "People think love stories have to end happily to be beautiful, but sometimes they're beautiful because they end." Her eyes shone as she said it, not with sadness, but with peace. She may have spent her life as one of Hollywood's brightest stars, but her greatest performance wasn't on screen. It was the way she lived, with grace, love, and quiet strength. And though Elvis Presley has long since left this world, their bond continues to live on, not in gossip columns or headlines, but in the hearts of those who believe in love that never fades. Ann-Margret's confession didn't just reveal a secret. It revealed a truth about life itself, that real love doesn't need to be loud or public. It just needs to be true. Ann-Margret's story begins in a small Swedish village called Valsjöben, near the Arctic Circle. Life there was hard, with long winters and few opportunities. She was born in 1941 in a wooden house without electricity, where her parents dreamed of a better life, far away from the snow. Her father, Gustav, was determined to find work in America. When Ann-Margret was only a baby, he left Sweden and went to Chicago to build a new start. For years, her mother stayed behind, raising her alone while working on local farms. Those years taught Ann-Margret strength and patience, but also what loneliness felt like. Finally, in 1946, when she was 5 years old, she and her mother boarded a ship and crossed the Atlantic. She didn't understand where they were going, but she remembered her mother saying, "Soon we will be together again." When the ship reached New York, and later Chicago, her father stood waiting with tears in his eyes. It was the beginning of their new American life, poor but full of hope. Their first apartment was tiny, and Gustav's factory job paid very little, but they were together. Chicago's Swedish neighborhood became their small world. Ann-Margret learned English at school and discovered she could sing. Her voice was soft but full of emotion. Her mother often said, "One day you'll sing for everyone." Even though the family had little money, she grew up surrounded by love, music, and the strong belief that anything was possible in America. That dream, the promise of a better future, became the foundation of everything Ann-Margret would later achieve. She never forgot those cold nights in Sweden, or her parents' sacrifice to give her a chance at happiness. As Ann-Margret grew older, her talent began to shine. In high school, she sang in talent shows, her confidence lighting up the stage. After graduation, she joined a small singing group called the Subtle Tones, performing in clubs and lounges around Chicago. Her bright red hair, deep green eyes, and passionate voice made her unforgettable. People called her a spark of fire. One night, while performing in Las Vegas, she was noticed by George Burns, the legendary comedian and Hollywood star. Burns was so impressed that he offered her a role in his show. For a young woman with no connections in Hollywood, it was a dream come true. In 1961, she appeared on television for the first time, and soon after, she got her first movie role. Then came her breakout film, Bye Bye Birdie, 1963. Audiences everywhere fell in love with her charm, her energy, and her magnetic smile. She became an overnight sensation, the symbol of youth, beauty, and excitement in the 1960s. Hollywood called her the female Elvis Presley. She danced with passion and sang with emotion that made her stand out from every other star. But behind her growing fame, Ann-Margret still felt like the girl from Sweden who wanted to make her parents proud. She often wrote letters home to thank them for believing in her. She also faced challenges. Critics said she was too wild or too sexy for the time. But Ann-Margret didn't change who she was. She once said, "If I can make people feel something, then I'm doing my job." Her natural warmth and power on screen made her one of the most admired women in America. Yet, even as her career soared, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change her life forever. In 1963, Ann-Margret was cast in a new film called Viva Las Vegas. Her co-star was none other than Elvis Presley, already the biggest star in the world. When they met for the first time, there was an instant connection. Both were young, talented, and full of energy. The chemistry between them was electric, both on screen and off. Their rehearsals often turned into laughter and playful dancing. Everyone on set could feel that something special was happening. Ann-Margret later said that when Elvis looked at her, it felt like the world disappeared. They shared the same love for music, motorcycles, and adventure. Soon, they were spending time together away from the cameras, riding motorcycles through the desert, singing together late into the night, and talking about their dreams. For the first time, Ann-Margret felt truly understood. But there was a problem. Elvis was already in a long relationship with Priscilla Beaulieu, who was living at his home in Memphis. Their love affair had to stay a secret. The press noticed their closeness, and rumors began to spread. Both stars denied everything publicly, but privately, their love grew deeper. They shared something rare in Hollywood, a connection that went beyond fame. Ann-Margret once described Elvis as the other half of my soul. Their time together lasted about a year, but it left a mark that never faded. When Viva Las Vegas was released in 1964, their chemistry made it one of Elvis's biggest hits. Fans could feel the real emotion between them. But behind the success, both were struggling with the knowledge that their relationship could never be public. They promised to always protect each other, no matter what happened. By 1964, Elvis knew he had to end the relationship. He was under pressure from his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, to keep his clean image and to marry Priscilla. Ann-Margret was heartbroken, but she understood. In her book years later, she wrote, Our relationship was very strong and very real. We kept it private for as long as we could. Elvis couldn't let the world know, but he couldn't